where were you deployed while you were serving in the Navy?
I spent most of my time on the aircraft carrier USS Intrepid, old World War II ship that still had the gun mounts, and my job was what they call a fire control technician guns. And so I was a fire control director for 4 of the gun mounts that had 16-foot barrels. And my job in the Intrepid would pull in close to shore as possible. We actually turned up mud with that aircraft carrier, and I would shell in 12 miles to help the guys. And they set 2 years of very high shooting records, all-time records. Literally got a little hardware and a little knowledge or recognition for taking them from 63% accuracy to 92 and then 94%. And what that meant was when guys were in serious, serious trouble, we could throw 12 miles and drop it within a yard. And we were called in on those danger close, very, very difficult situations.
That is quite amazing. Within a yard, you can do that. And today, and that's without, satellite and laser guided technology.
Yep, this is old school.
That's awesome. So you've been on an honor flight. Tell me what that was like for you.
I was on the number 22 honor flight, I think that was about 2 years ago, maybe more, of out of WSAU. I signed up for it, but I didn't want to go when they called me. I said, there's still World War II guys, there's Korean guys in my DAV and Legion, and there was about 14 guys from Medford area where I live, around Medford. And I said, well, you want to get these guys first. Well, the people running the program said, but aren't you one of these Navy guys that has the Agent Orange cancers and everything? And I said, yes, I am. And because I had stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and also large hairy B-cell leukemia. And both of those are Agent Orange caused cancers. Unfortunately, I'm one of the 23,000 Navy veterans that have the cancers that the VA does not recognize, does not provide disability, does not provide treatment. They deny us because we were, quote, blue water Navy. Their reasoning was that everything sprayed in the air stopped at the beach, and everything that's the rains washed down stopped at the beach. When the plume of the Mekong goes out 50 miles and our ships would suck up that water, the Australian Navy's proved that that was desalination, actually concentrated and increased the toxicity. So that's why so many Navy guys are exposed. So when they said to me, aren't you one of those Navy guys that's got the cancer? I said, yes. Then they said, well, then you're going. I was lucky enough to have my oldest son be my chaperone. We went out there and we had beautiful weather conditions. The treatment was top notch. It was startling to go through Washington Airport and have everybody stand up and clap and lead you through. We went to monuments. I had been there for the original dedication of the Vietnam Wall in Washington back in '84. I didn't want to go. I said, it's a hole in the ground. They can't even give us a statue. And my cousin, who was a Marine sniper, called me and said, John, it's not about us. It's about the guys who didn't make it. So I said, oh my God, you're right, Kenny. And so I went out there. Well, now when I went with the honor flight a couple of years ago, there's so many new monuments to see. The World War II thing is gigantic and spectacular. The Korean monument almost gives you goosebumps at just how truly immersive it is. It's the neatest thing. I mean, our wall is definitely impressive. And I was mic'd up that day by Fox Television out of Rhinelander. And I had the cameras with me and the microphones. And so if you look at Never Forgotten Honor Flight number 22, you can see my little bit of a story that we had that day. I have no clue why they chose me. It could have been any of us on that flight. We had one World War II guy, we had 13 Korean War veterans, and then the rest of us were Vietnam. And when I got back, it was to come back through the Mosinee airport and everybody clapping and cheering. There wasn't a frog in my throat. I had swallowed a whole dog. I mean, I was so choked up. And then to get to the end of the line and see guys that I knew in everyday life standing there that, had come down and were clapping and things, it was remarkable. I was so impressed that I spent these last 2 years selling tickets for Red Higgins and the Yankee Train, now I think it's just called the Train, his band. Red is a performer that often goes down to Nashville, and he has conducted concerts, quite a few of them, 3 and 4 a year, and he donates every penny to the high ground. I mean, to the Honor Flight program. And we were happy to, 2 years ago, to raise $6,000 for the flight, and this last year, $7,000. And I spent about 6 days selling tickets in the food store to get people to come to it. And I recommend anybody go and see it. It's good holiday music. It's around Christmas time, and it's good old songs. Very clean show, and nobody feels gypped or it comes out with anything but smiles. And then it's for such a good cause. I have talked with my PTSD counselor here in Wausau at the 32nd Street Outreach, and Dr. Chris Z asked me, he said, John, now that you're back from the honor flight, what are your impressions? And I said, right off the bat, 2 things, doctor. One, it feels like a 50-year weight's been lifted off my shoulders. And I said, and the second one, I don't have to walk around with my head hung down anymore. And he said, you know, that's exactly right. He said, every society has honors, some form of honors, whether it's an eagle feather or something for their warriors, except the United States, and certainly for the Nam guys. And he said, they are doing it perfect. He has seen such magnificent changes in the mental health, in the positive outlook for veterans that do this, that finally get something they should have got 45, 50 years ago. I mean, it's hard to believe that I was fighting 50 years ago at this time. And so I was there just the other night, Monday night. When the flight came in, there were some of my friends on there. The Bartnicks with the 3 brothers that went became kind of a newsworthy item around here. And Roger's in my DAV group, officer. And we were there, and he spoke this morning at the Veterans Cup of Coffee, and he said how impressed he was. Well, Roger really has no clue yet. He's not going to come down off of this high for a couple of years.
That is so awesome. And obviously you're recommending it to anyone, and there's sometimes I hear stories of some veterans that feel like they might not deserve it, or they didn't see combat, so they don't think that they should be able to go. No. What do you say about that?
That has literally nothing to do with it. We are Wausau Homes is bringing in one of the traveling walls. I've worked for 3 or 4 of those so far in my life. Because of the benefit it does to honor and recognize the guys, the names that are on there, the sacrifice they made, the sacrifice their families made. Where all of a sudden this nice young man or woman coming up isn't going to have children and grandchildren, and isn't going to have a career, and isn't going to be able to go on with the things that they were doing when they were just hitting their stride in the late teens and early 20s. So when the people turn out for even these traveling walls, these aren't fake, these aren't imitations. These are exact replicas, whether they're half size or 80% size. Wausau Homes is going to bring in one in, I believe it's June 20th or July 20th. Chemo gets me a little fuzzy, but I think it's June 20th. They're going to have a couple of speakers. I don't know why or how, but I got asked to speak. And the Wausau is going to have a chance then for people that can't make it out to the Vietnam Wall or can't get on an honor flight, where they can go down there and pay their respects, or maybe look up a relative. You can take rubbings off of these things, and it's very therapeutic all the way around, and it's certainly deserved by those names on the wall.
And one last side note, this is going away from the honor flight now. I just find it cool, being a radio guy, that you are a radio guy in the Navy. You are the Good Morning Vietnam guy. Is that true?
Not quite. I am one of them. I know that for sure. I have to be honest with you. I saw that Good Morning Vietnam with Robin Williams, and Robin is an amazing intellect and a true loss, and did a wonderful job in that movie. But I sat there for 1/3 of that movie thinking somebody wrote up a screenplay about some of my experiences when I was a disc jockey. And because I was kind of bucking the trend, instead of playing swing music, big band music, Charlestons and stuff on great big 78 platters that they had at the time in brown jackets. No way to look up and research what you were playing. You dropped the needle and you gave a series of E and H-bomb commercials, and that was about it. I wanted some rock and roll. We were only 19 at that time. Yeah, I was. And so I took Booker T and the MGs and had it as my theme song coming in. And then I had Jimmy Smith's Walk on the Wild Side. And I had to do that because the Baptist chaplain, who was kind of a hellfire and brimstone guy, we had several different religious clergymen there. He was the least impressed with rock and roll. And he wanted to make sure that there was some organ music before he got on and gave one of his speeches. And it is stereotypical, but he definitely, it always, you're going to burn in hell, this type of thing, you know. So when I had to play organ music, I made my selections, and that eventually took me off the air. About a year later, he never let up on me.
Well, that's just an awesome story, and thanks for sharing everything, and thanks for encouraging other people to check out the Honor Flight
Well,
program.
even the guides and the helpers are coming back and amazed. My own son had not been a veteran. I've been sort of neutral about that, which was very unusual in my family. And he got the chance to be my guardian, and even his attitude has changed since we've come back. So I recommend to the guys, look, you didn't have to do anything spectacular. This is for veterans. When you signed up and you swore and you took the oath to defend this country, you know, from enemies foreign and domestic, without an expiration date, and you served, and you get a chance to do something like this, you represent all veterans. There were so many school kids there. I was talking to people from so many nations. It's just an overall highlight in your life. And you want to take advantage of that. And you want to be proud of your service. And I think this is a real good way to do it. Because it may be 45 or 50 years late in coming, but these things are helping. And we're trying to make it so much better for what I call the desert guys. I mean, they've been fighting 25 years, some of these, with Enduring Freedom, you know, Iraqi war guys, Schwarzkopf and all of his Desert Storm guys. You know, we are working very hard. I know I am on the state council for toxic exposures, making sure that they get a better reception at the VA, get the treatment and things that they deserve, and not have to fight for 50 years for things like our Blue Water Navy guys are. The country owes a debt of gratitude to its veterans, and that goes without saying. And so when the people show up to these things, it is a way of saying thank you, and thank you to the families, and thank you to that particular individual. And so I just really can't see anything wrong with that.
Well, thanks so much for coming in, John, and thanks for your service.
You're welcome.